Welcome to The Explainer. Okay, today we're tackling something I personally found absolutely fascinating. We are looking at a highly scientific protocol to engineer an organic, clean label ranch dip right inside your own kitchen. Now, you might be thinking, come on, it's just a dip, right? Well, actually, as we're about to see from our source material today, replicating that iconic nostalgic flavor profile without relying on a bunch of industrial ingredients requires some pretty serious culinary chemistry. We essentially get to reverse engineer an absolute classic. So grab your lab coats, or, your aprons, and let's get into the science of the perfect dip.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our mission briefing: to replicate commercial ranch without the industrial seed oils or synthetic additives. We're going to cover 1. The ranch dip dilemma. 2. Protocol Alpha, the dairy matrix. 3. Protocol Beta, the herbaceous payload. 4. Protocol Gamma, the curing phase. And finally, 5. The MSG deficit correction.
Starting us off with Section 1, the ranch dip dilemma.
So what are we actually up against here? Well, our primary obstacle in the source material is a concept defined as the lipid deficit. Basically, when you try to make an organic, yogurt-based ranch replication, you're instantly at a huge disadvantage. You see, traditional commercial ranch is fundamentally a high-fat emulsion. It's built on heavy mayonnaise and buttermilk, and it relies heavily on synthetic stabilizers to just hold it all together. If you take regular yogurt and just mix in some salt and acid, you're going to hit a wall. Regular yogurt contains way too much liquid whey, so when it interacts with those ingredients, it weeps. It literally turns into this runny, watery dressing instead of that thick, scoopable dip we're aiming for.
And this brilliantly illustrates the real battle we're fighting. Look at the stark contrast between our two realities here. On one side, you've got the commercial standard, heavy on the mayo, buttermilk, synthetics, and MSG. But on the other side, we have our required clean label matrix. To actually pull this off, we have to swap out those industrial stabilizers for a high-protein organic foundation. We're talking organic whole milk Greek yogurt, dried alliums, and organic spices. We have to perfectly match the mouthfeel and that structural viscosity of the commercial stuff, but strictly using pure, clean ingredients.
Moving right along to Section 2, Protocol Alpha, the dairy matrix.
All right, let's build the required structural base for our substrate. The blueprint calls for exactly 1 cup of organic whole milk Greek yogurt. And notice I said Greek yogurt, not regular. Also, it absolutely must be whole milk. We're talking 4 to 5% milk fat. The source material stresses that this is absolutely critical for the chemistry to work. Why? Because those lipid chains, the actual fats in the whole milk, are the designated carriers for our fat-soluble flavor compounds. Without them, the flavor just falls totally flat. Then we have what the source beautifully calls the buttermilk bridge. Commercial ranch uses buttermilk to get a really distinct tangy pH. To organically mimic that tang without dumping in liquid that would thin out our dip, we stir in exactly 1 teaspoon of either organic apple cider vinegar or fresh lemon juice.
Before we move on, I need to point out a major failure condition. Seriously, do not use non-fat yogurt. If you use non-fat yogurt, it creates this chalky, astringent mouthfeel. Because it lacks those vital lipid chains we just talked about, it literally cannot carry the flavor profiles we are about to introduce. It's just a structural failure from step 1. So, whole milk is totally non-negotiable here.
All right, Section 3, Protocol Beta, the herbaceous payload. Now, your instincts might tell you that fresh herbs are the best choice for an organic recipe, right? Well, actually, scratch that. It's a tactical error. Fresh herbs are packed full of cellular water. If you chop them up and drop them into the matrix, that water is going to bleed out. It dilutes the dip and completely alters the authentic sensory experience we're trying so hard to replicate. So what's the workaround?
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how we break down the specific payload. It reads exactly like a lab supply sheet. To get that authentic flavor without the cellular water, the protocol requires dehydrated organic spices. For our allium base, grab exactly 1 teaspoon each of organic garlic and onion powder. Then, for the herbaceous matrix, we need 1 tablespoon of organic dried parsley, 1 teaspoon of organic dried dillweed, and 1 teaspoon of organic freeze-dried chives. And to finish it off, our osmotic balancers to perfectly season the whole shebang, half a teaspoon of kosher sea salt and a 1/4 teaspoon of fresh black pepper.
Next up, Section 4, Protocol Gamma, the curing phase.
So we begin by aggressively whisking this matrix until all those dried spices are completely and evenly distributed throughout the heavy yogurt. But So, the crucial point is you actually cannot eat this right away. I know it's incredibly tempting, but it requires an absolute minimum of 2 hours of chilled hydration rest in an airtight glass container. Right at this moment, those dried herbs and oleum powders are basically just hard dehydrated particles floating around in yogurt. They need time. That 2-hour mark is the absolute minimum threshold for success, though, as the source points out, leaving it overnight is mathematically superior for maximum flavor extraction.
I really want you to appreciate the unseen science happening inside your refrigerator during this resting phase. It's kind of amazing. During this thermal rest, the lactic acid and the residual whey from the yogurt are actively penetrating those dried spices. They are hydrating them, waking them up, and pulling their volatile organic flavor compounds right out into the lipid matrix of the yogurt. You are literally tasting chemistry in action. The inanimate dehydrated particles transform into highly active flavor agents.
And finally, Section 5, the MSG deficit correction.
Let's move to and see how this all builds together. Because our protocol is strictly organic and clean label, it inherently lacks the synthetic MSG punch of commercial ranch. The store-bought stuff relies super heavily on monosodium glutamate for that hyper-palatable, addictive umami resonance. So how do we build a biological bridge to correct that organic deficit? Step 1, you taste the cured dip. If it has a flat flavor profile to your commercially trained palate, we move to step 2, the correction. You introduce just 1/4 teaspoon of organic nutritional yeast, or literally a singular drop of organic soy sauce or tamari. By doing this, step 3 is achieved. You naturally introduce glutamates, creating a simulated umami resonance that perfectly bridges the gap left by the missing MSG.
So there we have it. We've deconstructed the commercial standard, navigated that tricky lipid deficit, precisely balanced our herbaceous payload, and leveraged lactic acid for optimal flavor extraction. Now it's over to you. Are you ready to synthesize the perfect clean label ranch in your own kitchen? It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is our modern reliance on synthetic, industrial additives actually blinding us to the incredible power of pure organic culinary science? Test these protocols out yourself, and let the science do the talking. Thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive. I will see you on the next explainer.